fat payment I got to make every month. Like I'd rather have someone else cover the mortgage and, we'll put up a
Facts.
down payment and call it a day. So I'm a huge advocate of it. I think that until you get to the point that you absolutely can't, why not? Go do it. Save that money. Use that money to go invest somewhere else. Go buy another property with it and
Yep.
rent that out. And you look back in 5 or 10 years, you'll be so far ahead.
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is The Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. All right, welcome to The Closing Table podcast. I am your host, Kevin C. McIntosh. Joining us on this episode, another real estate professional representing his market. We want to welcome Paul Smetona to The Closing Table. What's going on, Paul?
A beautiful day here in Cleveland, Ohio. Well, a rare beautiful day here in Cleveland, Ohio. So living my best life. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing just great myself, man. Being in the Midwest, I can relate, man. We take what we can get, especially in the wintertime, man. But thank you for taking time out your busy schedule and accepting our invitation. We appreciate it, Paul.
Of course. Happy to be here.
Yeah, man. So we want to talk about real estate in Cleveland, find out what's going on there. But I want to talk about you as an individual first, man. Everybody is a human being before we are professionals. So tell us who you are outside of real estate, Paul.
Yeah, so I'm a man with too many hobbies and too many things going on, and I'm using real estate as a way to support them all, I guess. But I was growing up, I was always into building things. When I was a kid, even like maybe 6, 7 years old, I started building remote controlled airplanes, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And before that, I think it was paper airplanes. When I was like 4 years old, I had an entire fleet. I built like 30 of them, and I had different ones for different things. And that's just sort of how I operate. So things went, in high school, I bought my first car, and from there, suddenly I couldn't afford to get the things done to it that I needed to. So I just learned how to do that and started working on that. And one thing kind of led to another. And to this day, I can't help but have too many hobbies. I produce electronic music. I DJ. I love to, I still work on cars. I still have those hobbies. I now have a family. And there's not enough hours in the day to do the things I want to do. And thankfully, I'm lucky enough to have a career that I love in real estate that is filling my time with good things, even if it's not exactly my hobbies. But fundamentally, that's who I am. I have way too much energy, and I'm a glutton for punishment. And I whatever I can do to keep myself busy, it's gonna be a lot of that, and it never stops.
Bro, I can relate to that, man. Like I can relate to that, man, because I'm the same way. Like I do my main gig, which I love. I have a passion for. I do this, but this supports my other endeavors, man. Other things that I want to experiment with, do in life and have fun with, man. My other podcasts, my other shows, my other different things, man. So yeah, I can relate to that, man. So that's what's up, man. Love to hear that, man. So obviously, like we said, your main gig, your primary profession is driving everything else. So let's talk about it. First, I want to talk about how and why you became a real estate agent, and then transition to describing your real estate business.
Yeah, that's a great question. So where it really started was about 5 years ago. I actually got into real estate as an investor. So I had done that for about 4 years, and almost exactly a year ago to today, my wife was pregnant at the time. She was due in June, and she was going to not go back to work after her kid was born. And I was just looking at finances as an investor and everything I had going on, and I realized it was going to be a little tight. And I was like, we're going to lose an income, and we're also picking up a new expense with having another member of the family. Yeah. So I was thinking of a way to try to sort of make everything work and still be comfortable. And it was about exactly a year ago. So we're sitting here in February right now. Last February, I was visiting my brother he lives in Miami Beach. It was beautiful. Went down there to get some sun for a couple of days and just kind of thinking about everything that was coming up and what was going to happen. And it hit me. I was like, I do so many real estate transactions. I buy a ton of properties. I sell a ton of properties. I know exactly what we're doing. Why am I paying commissions on every single one of these when I could just pocket that? And for so many of the purchases, like I'm doing all the work myself. Like I go in there, I figure out exactly what I do. I know exactly how I want to write the offer. I know exactly what conditions and terms I want. And I'm just having somebody process the paperwork, and they're collecting a couple percent on every single transaction. And same thing when it comes time to sell the property. So it just sort of made sense to me. I was like, well, even if I didn't do a lot of a lot of client work,
Right.
it would make sense for me to get my agent license just from the work that I do myself. That would be a substantial source of income. So
Hmm.
it kind of, once it clicked, I saw immediately like, yeah, I need to do this. So I went back to Cleveland and took the courses, got my license, started working in June, I think, of last year, and really enjoyed it and got to the point where I actually worked with quite a few clients over the last year in addition to having our all the investment work as well. And it's been great. It solved the problem. It's been fun. It's been lucrative. It's been everything I was kind of looking for. So not looking back and not planning to slow down the agent work at any time soon.
There you go. Hit the ground running, man. That's what I like, man. Get that momentum going. Find your way, find your niche, or whatever the case may be, and make your lane, man. And stay in it, man.
Yep.
And that's the key to success, if you ask me, with that consistency. Well, good job so far. Obviously, congratulations on all your success and what you've
Thank
achieved.
you.
So,
Thank you.
just want to speak on that. So, Cleveland,
Mm,
this is for you. We want to
that's
talk
right.
about Cleveland. We want to talk about Cleveland now. So, for people who may have never been to your market, describe
Mm.
Cleveland geographically. Come on, Paul.
Sure. So Cleveland is maybe once described as the mistake on the lake, but Cleveland's a beautiful place that I love on the lake. It has so much to offer. It's been a city that's name has been dragged through the mud for quite a long time, and some of that is deserved, but most of it's not. Cleveland's an amazing place. It really is. It's so livable. It's affordable. It's got so much to offer. We have three professional sports teams. They may tear your heart out, but we have three of them. We've got a lake, which is beautiful. We've got beautiful beaches, believe it or not, on the lake, which
Mm-hmm.
again, maybe they're only good for 4 or 5 months out of the year, but they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, it's a full size city. It's not as big as the giant ones, but we have all the amenities you'd expect to have. We have an arts district. We actually have the second biggest theater district in the country after New York City. Again, we've
Right.
got our sports teams. We've got some of the best hospitals in the world here.
Mm.
And it's a place with a lot of incredibly beautiful neighborhoods. Cleveland was a really wealthy city about 100 years ago. I think it was the third biggest city and the number one wealthiest city. Don't fact check me on that because I might be wrong. But I believe that was the case about 100 years ago in the early
Right,
1900s.
right,
We had a
right.
population of almost 1 million people in the city itself. And a
Mm.
lot of the artifacts from that time have survived through today. So you still see like these incredibly beautiful neighborhoods with these old mansions on them and amazing kind of architecture and infrastructure throughout. And today, Cleveland does have its blight. It does have its areas that could use a little bit more love. But
Mm-hmm.
all in all, it's a really livable place that's easy to live, that has all the amenities you'd look for, that's affordable, that has a lake and whatever else. And as long as you can deal with a few months of cold gray skies through the
Man.
winter, it's a great place to be.
Yeah, man. Well said, man. And like I said before, being in the Midwest myself in Michigan, I know all about the weather and all of the other stuff you were talking about. But let me tell you, that was a great way to describe Cleveland. When I ask people to describe their market, I'm talking about like that. You went through the weather, you went through the atmosphere, you went through like the culture, the thing, like the big things that they're known for, those attractions. That's what I'm talking about. That's describing Cleveland right there. So, all right, good. Cleveland does seem like a pretty cool place to be. With that being said, it's affordable, especially first time home owners and buyers, especially relative to the rest of the country. Also, definitely got to put that
Yeah.
relatively into perspective. But it's a great place to be if you want to get a little bit of the beach, a little bit of the snow. You want to have all four seasons. I will highly agree with that.
Yeah.
So, in your professional opinion, though, Paul, let's talk about Cleveland economically. Give us some data in regards to how Cleveland is looking with real estate, though.
Sure. So overall, Cleveland's a very affordable city. The median home price in Cleveland is like 110,000, I think, right now. Which, if you're watching this from LA or Chicago, or really any city in the country
Mm-hmm.
that's a bigger city, you're going to be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Now, granted, some of those lower priced homes may not be in places exactly where you want to live, but for what it's worth, from a real estate standpoint, Cleveland's market's actually been pretty hot for the last couple of years. We've seen it's overall we're looking at roughly, again, we've seen probably 20 to 30% appreciation over the last couple of years, as a lot of the country has, which is nice. It's still affordable, but from an investment standpoint, it's phenomenal because rents are relatively strong. In fact, I think if you look at it the other way around, it's one of the worst places in the country to rent. Now, that
Hmm.
means this is a really good place to buy and it's a really good place to invest. So, overall, we're looking at general trends. We've seen the last couple of years have been up and down like the rest of the country. The second half of last year was kind of rough here. We saw almost a 10% decline in the market, but it started bouncing back in December, and the beginning of this year started off really strong. I had a ton of listings in the November, December timeframe that just kind of sat, and the turn of the year happened, and every single one went under contract. I think I had 5 go under contract within like the first week or 2 of the year. And that's kind of just happening across the board. But overall, Cleveland, I think to sum it up, it's a very affordable place to live. It's a great place to invest because you can get into prices for a really reasonable, or get into homes for a really reasonable price, and they still bring in pretty strong rents. And it has a large housing stock. Cleveland was a much bigger city than it is today. So the result of that is there was a lot of sprawl, there's a lot of suburbs, there's a lot of areas, but there's kind of plenty of housing. There's no shortage here. So nationwide, it's really hard to find a house.
Yeah.
But in Cleveland, it's not the case. Like, and again, relative to what it was a couple of years ago, yes,
Okay, I feel it.
it's hard, but it's definitely not what it was a couple of
yeah.
years ago. But it's really not hard to find a place here, which is great.
So that adds some. I'm glad you said that because I wrote something down that you said 10% decline in the market, and this was basically like in Q4 of last year, December, kind of ending off the year.
Yeah.
So when you say 10% decline, you mean like almost in home values and or home prices, correct?
Yeah, that's
all
correct.
right. Right. So when you just said there's been an increase in supply, I'm kind of making that correlation now. I kind of get it. So the buyers in that market have had a little bit more leverage in the market, specifically, you would say, right?
Absolutely. The last 6 months has been, so if I look at my buyer clients versus my listing clients, it's been a lot more fun with the buyers for the last 6 months, which is a welcome relief from what we've had for the last couple of years. In the last couple of years, it's been everything going over asking. And if you look at days on market, Cleveland right now, as of today, I think we're sitting just over 30 or maybe like 33 days on market. A large portion of the last 2-3 years, we were like 20 or less. To put that into perspective, if you go back to 2017, 18, 19, we were consistently around 60 days on market. So right now we have about half the inventory we normally would have, but still that's 50% more than we had a year ago. So, things have definitely loosened up a little bit from that standpoint, probably largely interest rate driven. But yeah, it's definitely been a little bit easier to buy over the last 6 months here.
Man, great. That's a great way to say that, man. I'm rolling with it. I'm comprehending everything you're explaining in a great way right now, Paul. I'm feeling it. All right, so I want to talk about your engineering background, mechanical engineering, if I'm not mistaken, to be specific.
That's right.
How do you kind of how does it or how do you kind of use that knowledge into what you're doing now, either with the renovations or just with the business part, like mechanical engineering to real estate? How were you?
Sure. Great question. So, I think the biggest piece of it is probably sort of the engineering mindset. So, the engineering mindset, we're very much problem solvers. It goes back to me building airplanes and cars and whatever else as a kid. Like, that's what got me into engineering. It was all about, can I figure out how this works? And if I figure out how it works, can I make it? Can I build it? Can I change it? Can I tweak it? What can I do? And, so I think from that standpoint, it helps me in so many different parts of the business today. So from an investing standpoint, that's really what got me started, was the fact that I could go renovate these homes myself. So it made it really easy to get in. If one of the hardest things as a new investor or even as a new homeowner who wants to make changes to your home is finding a reliable contractor. It's really hard to do. And they can be very expensive. So I think that having that entire piece of it just eliminated, because I was able to do it myself, it saved me a ton of money and it saved me a ton of headache. So that was a really good place. And to this day, I'm not so much hands-on anymore, but I still do get, pretty involved with making sure that the construction and renovations are going the way that I want them to. So that piece of it is big to this day. But I also think there's a side of it, which is kind of just like evaluating and studying the market and strategy and those kinds of things, where that same mindset of like, let's understand how it works. Like, let's make sure, hey, the last 6 months, it was kind of a little bit of a harder time to sell and an easier time to buy. Like, maybe we should focus more on buying for the business. And maybe we should, if there's something we're thinking about selling, maybe we should refinance it, put a tenant in it, and let's try again next year, because right now is not a great time to sell. And of course, a lot of other mindsets would work there as well. But I think from an engineering standpoint, just really looking at, the market as a system, and understanding what are the levers that kind of move that system and what's the best way to respond and react to that. That's been very helpful through today as well.
Yeah, I got a lot of friends that are engineers. But yeah, one of my close friends that I do business with, my business partner, very analytical guy, man. Very. It almost gets. I'll be like, bro, can we please just leave the numbers out of this? But we need that because I'm not that.
Yeah,
I'm not the analytical
yeah,
type. I'm the other type. Like,
sure.
let's just go. Let's just do. You know what I'm saying? Creative.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But that's needed, man. And as soon as you said that, I thought of my friend Matt. I was like, yeah, Matt is the
yeah.
exact same, very analytical. But I mean, it's necessary, man. If you want to do
It
things
is.
right, accurately, you want to measure twice, cut once. That's what you need. You need that data,
That's
the
right.
analytic.
And
Yeah,
you do need both sides of it. Like the
yeah,
engineering
yeah.
mindset, that kind of like analytical number side is really important. You're more like the energy, the flow guy, and that's super important too, especially, in any business, whether you're
Mm-hmm.
working as an agent or an investor or anything else, like that piece of it's huge too, right? Like it's half of it is understanding the kind of the numbers and the whatever of it, but the other half of it is being able to know how to operate, how to work with people, how to,
Yeah, man.
just kind of
Yeah,
that
good
whole
point.
that whole energy side of it, and that's so important too.
Good
Like
point.
you really got to have both in a lot of parts of this industry.
Good balance. Yep, that's well said. Well said. So, I mean, since you say you don't do any of the renovations as much as you used to now, right? Let's
Not as
talk
much
about
as
when you did do it. Like, has
sure.
there been a project that you did that stood out the most? What was your most challenging project or
Oh
most
yeah.
memorable? Let's talk about the challenges and how you solved it and all that.
Yeah, for sure. So I would definitely talk about the second home I ever bought. So the first home I bought was in February of 2019. It's
Mm-hmm.
$22,000 single family home, four unrelated adults who didn't know each other, living in the home, sharing an $800 rent, or $800 a month rent payment. Kind of gives you a little bit of a picture of what this home was like. Um, and we bought it, and right after buying it, we were able to take out a home equity line of credit on it for more than we bought it for. So I bought it for $22,000. And I went out and took a home equity line of credit. They said it was worth 44, so they gave me like 28. I was like, well, what
Oh,
can I
that's
buy
what's
with this
up. Yeah.
28? So we went, and it just so happened the insurance agent that I had called to get insurance on that first house, he was like, hey, I also do a lot of home flipping. I just looked at a house in that neighborhood. That neighborhood wasn't for me, but the house had a ton of potential. You might want to look at it. It's priced around that point. So I went and took a look at it, and we ended up buying it for $30,000. And it was a really cool home. It was a early 1900s home that had burned down. And somebody had
Mm.
spent like 20 years. I mean, it shouldn't have taken 20 years, but somebody spent 20 years rebuilding it. So like they built the shell of the house. They put all new framing. It was a 3-story house that they converted to 2 so that you had really high ceilings. It was like 9.5 foot ceilings on the
Mm.
first floor, 16-foot ceilings on the second floor. And they did all kinds of really cool work. They made it a really modern home. Like they did this like corrugated metal exterior, but inside it was just a shell. There was nothing. There was no electrical, no plumbing, no heat, no
Wow.
anything, no utilities of any kind. It was just framed out, and that was it. So we bought this home for $30,000, and it was the first like big complete renovation that I had done, and there were so many challenges because we had to have this thing fully permitted because it was just a shell.
Right.
And thankfully, that my engineering background helped there because I was able to make all the drawings and get everything done and get it through the city. So we got everything permitted. We did all the work. And it was just a fun project. We did everything. I wired the entire house myself, ran all the plumbing with my partner. We built everything, all the drywall, built the kitchens, the bathrooms, and we had a lot of fun with it. We did all kinds of stuff. We did like heated marble floors in the bathroom and a cool kitchen, and it's this
Ooh.
big open concept home. So
Mm.
it was great. We got it done. It took a while. It took us longer than it should have, partially because we got distracted in the middle to go work on other projects. But we came back, ended up taking us about a year to get it done. And now we rented it for a couple of years, and then now we ended up making it an Airbnb. So now it's one of our short-term rentals in Cleveland, and it's been really successful. And it's just kind of fun to me. It's one of the first homes we bought. I bought 70 or so at this point. That was home number 2, but I bought it within a couple of weeks. The first home I ever bought. It was the first big renovation project that I did, and to this day, it's one of the like nicer, more fun homes that we've done. And it's a kind of a cool. A lot of the homes in your portfolio are kind of like, oh, they're there and they're fine and they're average, but
Right.
this is a
No.
cool one that
Yep.
you can show people pictures of, and it's
Yep.
really beautifully decorated, and it's like, oh, so it's definitely has a special place in my heart to this day.
Yeah, man. I would love, man. I would feel the same way, man. I have to stand on that. I show my grandkids, like, I built this house right
Yeah,
here, right? I
yeah.
built that from scratch, man. Yeah, you would want to. That's something
Exactly.
to be proud of. Like, I don't need to do that too many times. Let me do it once, and I can say that I did it, and I can show the work and be just be in awe about something like that, man. So well
For
done,
sure.
man. I gotta applaud you for that, man. Better man
Thank
than
you.
me as of right now, because I don't know if I can handle doing all of that electrical and plumbing and whatnot. but
That's what your
but
engineering friends are for.
yeah, man, great point. But that just goes to say that you are heavily involved in the investor community in Cleveland,
Yes.
right? So can you talk about
Yes.
an instance where you kind of gave some game to a younger investor? You kind of showed them the ropes and gave them some advice on how they can be successful. And do you have any examples of that actually being the case?
Absolutely. So I am pretty heavily involved in the local investor community here. I run a meetup every couple months with my partner David, which has gotten pretty get big. We get anywhere from 50 to 100 people there. A lot of them are investors, some of them are agents, some of them are other people kind of in the industry. And a lot of people have helped me get to this point, and I very much enjoy helping other people who are kind of further behind us get started in the journey. Um, One that's top of mind, just because this kid was nice enough to take me out to a really nice dinner a couple weeks ago at an expensive restaurant in Cleveland because he was so thankful for whatever little bit I gave to him over the
There you
last year or
go.
two.
That's what's up,
But
man.
he was a young guy, really young guy. I think at the time he was probably 20, and he just had bought a duplex to live, or it was a 2 unit, it was two single families on a single parcel. He just purchased it. And he was like, hey, I want to do some renovations and I want to figure out how to rent this out. I think he was living in one and his sister was living in the other and she was moving out. And so it was a great way for me he lived close to me. So I walked the property with him and made some recommendations. Here's how I would handle this. Here's how you might do this kitchen as affordably as possible. Here's how you might kind of save what you can in this bathroom, but just do the rest that you got to do to make it nice. And then I helped him through, was able to help him through here's a lease you can use, and here's how I screen tenants, and here's how you do that. And it was fun. I mean, just to watch him, it took him a little bit to kind of get the hang of it, but he ended up doing most of the work himself, which was all new for him. Got the renovation done, turned out great, and he was able to get it rented to a good tenant. And now it's paying his entire mortgage, so he no longer has a mortgage payment for his house. He lives in the
Man.
back, the one in the front's done. So it's fun to watch how just a couple little things, and he probably would have figured it out anyway,
Yeah.
but helping him kind of get on the rails and get on the right track and watch how quickly that starts to impact somebody's life. When you go to a couple months later, you don't have a mortgage payment, like that's pretty
Man.
awesome. And now he's an investor. So he was very appreciative and took my partner Jack, other partner Jack, who had also helped him, took us out to a nice steak dinner the other week, so timing's kind of funny on that. But it's enjoyable and satisfying to watch those people learn and grow. And it's nice to be able to give back because we've been given a lot here. So
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love to hear that, especially the whole. I mean, I guess you can call that house hacking technically, right? Even though it's two
yeah,
single families on
absolutely,
a single parcel, like
absolutely.
you still call that house hack, and I'm always an advocate for that here, man, at the
Yeah,
closing
you have
table.
to be.
So I'm so happy to hear another success story of someone doing that, and I highly encourage our audience to do that because it's a very reasonable, practical way to get into real estate investing and or
Yes.
home ownership.
Yes, and I still do it today. I mean, I own, again, I have partners in some of these, so I don't own it myself, but I own about 70 or 80 properties, and I still live in a duplex, and it's my wife's duplex actually, but the downstairs tenant pays for our mortgage, so
There
I
you
think we pay like
go.
$100 a month to live there, and it's like, why do I don't want to have a big fat payment I got to make every month. Like I'd rather have someone else cover the mortgage, and we'll put up a
Facts.
down payment and call it a day. So I'm a huge advocate of it. I think that until you get to the point that you absolutely can't, why not? Go do it. Save that money. Use that money to go invest somewhere else. Go buy another property with it and
Yep.
rent that out. And you look back in 5 or 10 years, you'll be so far ahead.
Smart man. Smart man. It's the long play. We playing the long game, man. Bigger
That's
picture.
right.
Bigger picture. Zoom out. That's what I like to say.
That's right.
All right. So with that being said, we got a great rental portfolio. You got your own property. You got people paying the mortgage. It's just working great. Do you care to share some of your plans for your future investment properties and things of that nature,
Sure.
and how you plan or actually how you do actually leverage your construction background with what your plans are for the future also?
Absolutely. So where I started was with, a couple single family, small multifamily homes, and that has scaled to now I have a business where I've got a partner or something, depending on the project, sometimes a couple, but we've gotten a lot more efficient at buying and fixing and renting those out, and that's growing really quickly. I think we bought 40 homes last year, and
Nice.
that's continuing to grow. However, I'm also starting to look at some different markets. So we're buying a couple commercial properties. We bought actually closing this week on a 4 unit storefront in a cool area of Cleveland. It's called Old Brooklyn. It needs complete renovation. But that's, being able to renovate these projects is what allows us to go so much faster. Because if you're buying stuff that's turnkey and it's ready to go, you got to keep saving up for the next down payment, save up for the next down payment. So unless you have a ton of income or a ton of cash, you're kind of limited in how fast you can go. But as we're scaling into these different property types, we're looking at some larger multifamily stuff as we're buying these kind of commercial and mixed use buildings. And also with the single family, as we're able to buy it for cheap and then fix it up and renovate it and rent it out and then refinance it, you can get most or sometimes all of your money back. And that allows you to go so much faster because then you can, take that money and go buy another one. So if you can get a project done in 6 months and then recycle it and move on, that's how we've built everything we have. Like I didn't come from a lot of money. I didn't have a ton of income. I mean, I had enough as an engineer that I could do it. But the only reason I was able to get from where I started to where I was today in 5 years was by doing those renovations and being able to pull the money out and recycle it. And that's 100% what I recommend if you're able to.
Man, yes. And thank you for sharing that first and foremost, because you didn't have to do that. But that's the game. That's the game. You're watching this on YouTube for free. I mean, drop the donation. I mean, I'm at that point because you just gave a lot of valuable information, man. So, look, man, thank you. Thank you for that first and foremost. And I want to say congratulations, too. I know that you recently had a baby in last June.
Yes.
Congratulations on the fatherhood. I can relate also having a little one, so I know it keeps you on
congratulations to you as well.
Thank you. So, balancing life. Come on now. Fatherhood, real estate, your other endeavors. How are you balancing them all now? Like, come on, give me your secret.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. That is the hardest part. Before I had a kid, I worked on average probably about 100 hours a week. I worked a lot, and it's all day, every day, nonstop. And then the few hours I had, especially before I met my wife, the few hours I had other than that 100 hours a week were out building a car or doing whatever. And so life, needless to say, has changed a lot. There's the side of it that I want to be there for my kid. I want to watch him grow up. I want to do what I can to soak that in and enjoy it. But there's also the side of it too that like now, there's a lot more responsibility. There's, both from a time standpoint, I have to think about, I can't, being a good partner to my wife and making sure that, I'm not leaving her doing all the work. But also from a financial standpoint, making sure that we're taking care of the kid, and obviously a lot of expenses come with that. So across the board, it's a complete change in kind of priorities. A couple of years ago, it was all about, I'm going to work my ass off, and then when I'm done with that, I'll do what I can to have some fun with my hobbies. Whereas now it's more like I have to really fight to protect my time. So I have, I give myself maybe 8-9 hours a day to work, and that's pretty much it. I don't have any more time than that because I wake up in the morning, maybe I take the first hour or so with the baby, or maybe my wife does, but if I do, that hour's gone, and then I go to work, and then I come home, and she's been watching him all day, so she needs a break. So I got to take over for a couple hours, try to help out with dinner, do whatever. And then he goes to bed around 8 or 8:30, and then I've got, another hour or so if I need to catch up on a little bit of work or do whatever. But the hobbies are hard to fit in. So, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I was still spending, 12 hours a day in the garage on the weekends like I used to back in the day.
Right.
And here and there, I still make time for them. But it really is just, it's really been a case of priorities. So the things that are most important to me float to the top. And I still love going and driving a nice car on a nice sunny day, or I love DJing here or there or whatever. And it's just been an issue or just been a situation where the things that are a little bit less important start to fall off. I've realized that I don't actually care that much about fixing my car or I have a bunch of old beat up sports cars that I bought and then fixed them up. And I actually care a lot less about doing that work on the car. I just enjoy the fact, and it's satisfying, but I enjoy the fact that I have them and I'm able to enjoy them and drive them. So I'm not really doing any big projects on them anymore. At this point, it's just like, but I might find 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning and the sun's rising. I'll go drive through the metro parks and enjoy that for half an hour. And that kind of gets me going. And same here and there, maybe I don't have all the time to do music production that I used to. And I used to love that, but I still find time, here or there to go DJ for an event or do something fun or meet with friends. Sorry about that. And so I think from that standpoint, it's really just been a situation or a case of reprioritizing and understanding that, hey, like things have to shift. You've got this beautiful new thing that's going to take a huge amount of energy in your life, and And you can do that and you can have that, but of course you got to create the time and the space for that.
Yeah,
And that's been probably one of the most difficult things, you know. And I started this off by saying I'm a man with too many hobbies, and I really feel that intensely these days because there's so many things I want to do that I just don't have time for. But at the end of the day, it's not a bad thing. It's the only reason I don't have time for them is because I've got things that are even more important in my life now, and so that's nothing to be sad about.
man, talk about it. I felt like, yo, we can relate on so many different levels, Paul, because I feel like we're at that same point in life, man. Just, entering fatherhood, balancing our main gig with, other hobbies, trying to remain social, have a great relationship with our significant other. But, it's so many different moving parts, but that's why that question about balance is important. I'm literally asking it not only just for the sake of the podcast, but for myself, because I like to ask other men or other adults in general about how are you balancing your personal life with your professional life and everything else that comes with it, man. So you just take little ideas from everybody and see what works best. Thank you for providing
Absolutely.
that.
Of course.
Yeah. So, movie, book, quote,
Mm.
philosophy. What out there have you kind of consumed that you feel like shaped you personally and or professionally that you could share with us?
Yeah, so there's a philosophy, there's also a book. So there's a book I read maybe 5-6 years ago. It's an old book by an old Roman emperor, Marcus Aurelius, and it's I think the particular one was Meditations was the book, but really it's just he's kind of he's associated with the Stoic philosophy, and I love it so much. It's something I try to live my life by, and the fundamental premise of it is that in life there's so many things that you can't control, and there's a lot of things you can control. Focus your energy on the things you can control and just accept the things you can't. I can't make it be sunny 360 days a year out of Cleveland. I really can't. But I can maybe find ways to deal with it. Maybe I can take myself down to Miami for a couple of days. Maybe I can go build a real estate business to the point where I can work remotely and go spend a month of the year down there. But if I'm going to sit here and be angry every day that it's cloudy because it's Cleveland, I'm wasting my energy and there's no point. And I think it's so important just to be happy in life. I mean, there's so much you can't control, and there's so many things that if you want to obsess about, that'll make you miserable. I mean, just look anywhere and you'll find them. But there's so many things that are beautiful, and there's so many there's so many ways that we can react to and respond to things to where we can take a bad situation and it's no longer about, hey, this bad thing happened. I had perfect example. I bought a house 2 years ago, and in between when I did my final walkthrough, closing, there was a bit of a delay. It was supposed to be a day or two, but it ended up closing got delayed because a couple things documentation-wise weren't buttoned up, and it took a week to close. This was in January. In that time that I hadn't seen the house, the previous owner hadn't paid the gas bill, and the gas got turned off, and the heater got turned off, and the pipes froze, and there was a second floor bathroom that a pipe burst, and the water was flooding through that bathroom, through the ceiling, through the entire house. In that week that I wasn't there, 9,000 gallons of water went from the second floor through the entire house to the first floor. So I closed on the property, I wired in the money, and I went and got the keys, and I went inside, and there was literally all the drywall come off the ceiling, and there was a mountain of ice, like a mountain of ice and drywall. It was probably 6 feet high, just like this in the middle of the room. The entire house was all screwed up. So my $40,000 rehab became a $100,000 rehab on that project. I tried to see if there's some way I could go after the previous seller, but because of the way that the whole transaction had happened, it was multiple people and it was a wholesaler involved. It just, there was nothing I could do other than file a lawsuit. And that wasn't, I'm not here to do that. That's not what I wanted to do. So I could have sat there and been like, wow, my life sucks and all these things are terrible. But instead it was a good situation where it was like, you know what? All the drywall came off. The whole thing's open. Why don't we just make this place a lot nicer now? Because now we have the opportunity to rerun all of our electrical and put recessed lighting in everywhere and just get all this stuff done. So while it was still unfortunate and we lost a lot, we still turned it into a good situation because we ended up we were able to design the entire house, make it exactly what we wanted it to be, make it a really beautiful place. We also turned that one into a short-term rental. And to this day, that is by far our highest performing short-term rental, by far. And a lot of it is because of that, because we were able to completely design this thing from the ground up to be exactly what we want it to be. So it has the layout that we want, has the functionality, the colors, the design, the lighting. We put skylights in and made everything exactly what we wanted. it ended up being a good thing. It really did. And that's just how life works. Like so many things happen that are out of your control, and it's like, what are you going to do about it? Like there's nothing you can do. You
Mm-hmm.
can sit there and let it make you miserable, or you can just say, well, this is the new situation. What's the best way forward from here and move on? And like that's fundamental in life. It's fundamental in business. It's fundamental everywhere. And so I think to me that's something I kind of internalized years ago. It's just taken so much stress out of life where something bad happens and you're like, okay, well that is what it is. What can we do? Let's focus on what I control. Focus on how I respond to it, how I react to it, how I feel about it, and let yourself feel bad for a minute and then move on and get back to it. And that sort of mindset, I think, it just will make every part of your life so much better. So that. Again, Marcus Aurelius' Meditations was what introduced me to it, but there's plenty more books on Stoicism you can read if you like. But that fundamental kind of idea is core to who I try to be as a person, and I absolutely love it.
I love that, man. I couldn't have said it better myself, Paul. Perfect place to land the plane. Thank you so much, man, for being here, giving us the game at the closing table. At this point, if you have any last words or want to tell people how to reach out to you, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. All I would say is, real estate changed my life, really did. And seriously, the best thing you can do, if you can possibly find it, find a way. Go use an FHA mortgage or a low down conventional mortgage. Buy a multifamily property, live in one half, rent the other half if you possibly can. Invest in real estate if you can. It takes a long time, but it really has the power to influence your life. And it's so doable. It was scary to me at one point. It's not anymore. All the information you need is out there. There's podcasts like this ones and other ones where you can go find the information you need for free to be able to do this. And I highly recommend it. If you ever have any questions, you can reach out directly to me. You can find me on Instagram. It's at Smetona Homes. So my last name, Smetona, Smetona Homes. Shoot me a DM. I'm easy to reach, and if there's ever anything I can do to help, I can connect you to our investor network. If you happen to be local or close to Cleveland, you're more than welcome to come to our meetups. And even if you're not, there's plenty of resources I'd be more than happy to connect you to and kind of share the love over here.
Absolutely, man. Thank you again, Paul. Appreciate you. And for our YouTube audience watching, if you got to this point in the video, do us both a favor and hit that like button, baby. Make sure you also share and subscribe to the content. If you are listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platforms, please do the same. Give us a like, a 5-star rating, and subscribe for our latest content. Paul, I'd like to leave our audience with a question on the way out the door. So this is for you, audience. What's the best real estate investing advice you've ever received from a real estate agent or just in general, and why was it valuable to you? Don't tell us now. Leave it in the comments below and share with everybody else. Besides that, talk to you next time.